the situation we're now in, we need to maximize our webinar resources. So we were asked if we would kindly give up some slots so that other colleagues for other sectors were able to get on and also provide information, advice and guidance around our qualifications and apprenticeships, etc. I'm joined this afternoon by a colleague of mine, David Wackett, who's the industry manager for the digital sector, and we expect this session to last around about an hour. So I'll let David introduce himself and tell you a bit about what's going on.
Hi Ken and everybody, thank you for that. As Ken said, my name's David Wackett. I'm the industry manager. Basically, what that means is I am responsible for our qualifications and endpoint assessment products in the digital IT sector. So that includes all of the digital EPA things that you're going to hear about. I get an update and some new ones coming down on our pipeline, and all of our sort of traditional qualifications. So if you weren't on the call this morning, I'll just very quickly say what is coming along soon, what we have in development, and when we're expecting to have those available. So obviously there's the range of digital standards that we will already provide endpoint assessment service for. In addition to that, from April, where you'll be able to see and register on Wall Garden, the end of April, we're fingers crossed hoping to have a digital support technician available, which we're expected to be quite popular. With first assessments, people will be able to take those from July, the end of July this year, and you'll be able to make reservations from the end of May. So that's sort of hot off the presses. That development is going ahead, and we're hoping to have that available. We're expecting that to be quite a popular. There's already lots of apprentices on that standard. IT technical salesperson is another one that we're expecting to have available and be seen on Wall Garden from September this year. And the other one we're developing is data analyst, but we're developing the revised assessment plan. Now that hasn't been finalised and published, so we don't currently offer that, but we will be offering it. Hopefully the goal is for sometime in the autumn, but that will be a new service for us. We don't currently offer that. In addition, we will be updating and developing revised endpoint assessment for those standards that we already offer, such as software developer, infrastructure technician, digital marketer. Well, not digital marketer, that's not going to be revised under this current round, but at some point in the future it will be. But those other digital standards, we are expecting to be to see revised assessment plans, and obviously we will update our assessment endpoint assessment service for those too in the coming months, and probably in the coming year now. So that's everything from me. I will be fielding questions. You have the question facility on your screen, and probably at the end I'll go through those with Ken. If there's any that I can answer in the meantime, I'll try to do so. Otherwise, I will go through those with Ken, and he can answer those for you. This is being recorded, and a recording will be available too. So back over to Ken. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. So we'll try and not make it too much of a chalk and talk. We'll try and get through the slides bit fairly quickly so that you can ask your questions, and we can actually answer some of the queries around things that are happening. We'll also give you a bit of an update of what City and Guilds is doing at this time to support our customers, and the materials that we have available to help with you in terms of delivery of apprenticeship programs, etc. But again, you know, as David said, for those of you who were not with us on the session this morning, I'd also like to say a big thank you to all of our training providers, colleges and private training providers, because our overall pass rates for the digital standards are really quite high, and they do exceed the average of City and Guilds as a whole. Just to give you an example, currently in terms of network engineer, we're seeing a 96% pass rate. Now that's got nothing to do with us, it's got nothing to do with our independent assessors. It's all about you and the way that you've prepared your apprentices to put them through into the endpoint assessment. So, you know, my sincere thanks for that and for making David and I look really good in terms of what we're doing. So the presentation you're about to see is part of what we did earlier this year. We're only in March, but we had 2 face-to-face network sessions in February where we presented the information that we did this morning around summative portfolios and also the information that we're going to do this afternoon to just sort of give you some more hints and tips around projects, interviews, and we've also got some frequently asked questions that we have to put those in front of you as well. These things are based on the feedback that we get from our lead independent assessors. And so wherever they are telling us that there are issues with certain things coming through, we take that and we use this opportunity, and we'll use further opportunities to make sure that you are getting advice to help you maximize the potential of all of your apprentices. And equally, you know, when we hear from you where there are issues or where you found innovative ways of doing things, we take that back to them as well. So for example, this morning we were asked about links from portfolios out to videos or out to things like GitHub for software developer. And yes, those things are certainly possible. And between the 2 sessions, I've emailed all our lead independent assessors just to update them on some of the things that we've fed back through these sessions. So let's start with the first bit, the Synoptic Projects. And some of this may sound like teaching your granny to suck eggs, and I do apologise for that. But, you know, one of the key things is that apprentices don't read all of the project. They don't read all of the scenario, and then they don't look at all of the tasks that they are meant to do. You need to impress upon them that they need to do this. They need to see the whole picture. Now, the tasks, there's only usually 4 or 5 tasks they have to do, and they usually follow a very simple format. The first one is usually a bit of planning or some research and planning that they have to go through. Then they have to do some actual work. Then they have to write up some conclusions, and then they have to produce a report or a guide for their managers or for users. So, you know, they need to see the thing as a whole. Because that will help them in the way that they actually tackle the whole of those projects. So please get them to do that. And the other thing I would ask is when they put the evidence together, please can they clearly label, you know, task 1, task 2, task 3 and task 4 if all of the evidence write-up is going into a single document. That would be much appreciated. I have seen one project where it did start with the heading of task 1, and then I'm not sure when we got into the others. In terms of checking the tasks, as I say, you know, they usually follow the format that I've outlined. So planning the work, resources to be used, design and carry out the actions proposed, evaluation and testing, and then reports and recommendations. There is one project I know that's only got 3 tasks in it because it's bring your own device to work. So basically it's around doing a piece of research, then doing a proof of concept, and then writing up the final report. And if you look at the samples that we have on our website, you know, they give you a very clear indication of how these things operate. So when the apprentice gets there in front of those projects, it shouldn't be a complete shock as to what they're going to see. They need to make sure they fully understand what is being required. Now, we have been asked, you know, if they don't understand some of the wording, or can they actually ask the responsible person in the room? The answer to that is you have to be very careful how you would answer that. You also need to make a note on the observation form that we provide that they have asked that question. But as long as you don't give them the answer of how to do something, but you want to use words of one syllable instead of 5 that we may have used, then that's not a problem. They need to approach the project as if it were a real piece of work. Remember, infrastructure technician is over 3 days, digital marketer over 4, software developer and network engineer are over 5. I mean, these are the sorts of types of projects that they may well do over those periods of time. And they should record what they're doing and how they're getting on and collect that evidence. And they need to make sure they are collecting the screenshots and the evidence as they go along, because clearly if they're installing things, once it's installed, they can't go back and get the initial screenshots of where they put in information of the setup. So make sure that they are very well aware of what they need to do. And take time. Make sure they complete tasks. Make sure they get all the, some of the tasks completed in full. We know that in real life, we all run out of time on certain things. However, City and Guilds has developed these projects so that there is some flexibility in there that people could potentially achieve doing the work in less than the days allocated. In terms of digital marketer, from our experience of a network workshop we ran last year, we had somebody who had half a dozen apprentices doing 2 different projects. One lot of the apprentices actually did take right up to the end of the 4 days, whereas the others finished by the end of the morning of the 4th day and were just spending the last day using that to make sure that their evidence was clear and that their write-up was well laid out to make it easier for our independent assessors to read. So please make sure that they do use the full allocation of time. And if the project goes wrong or they think it's going wrong, don't panic. Document where it's going wrong, but keep going. And if they can say, actually it's gone wrong because I should really have done, that's what we're looking for. We're looking at the way they think, the way they do things, the way they operate in normal circumstances. And you have to document just what they've carried out. We're not looking for war and peace. It's a single sheet of A4, just saying, on the first task, they took 15, 20 minutes to plan and had, clear guides for the next part of the activities. That's the sort of thing we're after. It's not war and peace about they did this and then they did this and then they did something else. And you do need to, put that in with their evidence, because that will also help us see exactly how they go about working and how they make decisions. Clearly, if they only spend 2 minutes on planning, we get a pretty good idea quite upfront around how much time they put into some of their working. So it's about justifying what they've done. It's drawing upon the knowledge that you have taught them in making those decisions and why they've done things in certain orders. That's what we're looking for in that evidence. Now, I do understand that Synoptic Projects at this moment in time are going to be causing some people problems. So we do have an external quality assurance body, NSAR, which is the National Skills Academy for Rail. Bizarrely, they're also the EQA body for healthcare. And they have spoken with IFATE, and we do have the ability now to allow apprentices to do the projects at home if possible. And I have to stress the if it is possible for the project that they want to do. Now, we do have the virtual assessment platform for network engineer and for infrastructure technician. So that can certainly be used in that way using Packet Tracer without a problem. But you will need to inform us that is what you're going to do. They will need to keep a timeline of the work that they're doing and how much time they've spent on each of those things. And you should receive, as long as you are signed up to email updates, you should receive something from our marketing department tomorrow that will give clear guidelines on how that should be worked. So we have been through this. We have thought about the issues of having people in a location and interacting with other people and looking how we can avoid the social distancing. And our thanks go to NSAR for actually making that happen and getting approval from IFA. If you need more details, watch your emails and just check on that, because that information will be coming through. In terms of the interview, we are always asked, can we not give you a list of questions that they're going to be asked? And the answer to that is no. The questions are based on what the independent assessors, so IEPA is the independent endpoint assessor, what they actually see in the summative portfolio, what they see as the evidence from the Synoptic project, and what they see has been written about the apprentice through the employer reference. So that's where those questions come from. Now, in the EPA prep tool area on Smart Screen, so every time you register an apprentice with us, they can get a login for the EPA preparation area, where we do have advice and quite detailed advice and guidance, not just for them, but for yourselves and employers around the different elements of the EPA. It is very clear there that, what they need to be doing, but also we do have, certainly under digital marketer, infrastructure technician, some example transcripts of the sorts of things that might be asked. And under software developer, the person who wrote that for us, our lead independent assessor there, has actually put in a copy of the form that they use to show you what they've gone through in terms of the summative portfolio, the project and the employer reference, and how they've drawn those questions out. So please make use of that Smart Screen endpoint assessment preparation area, because there's a wealth of materials in there to choose from. The only question I guess we can guarantee that will be asked is, what did you do, or what do you do? And that's used quite a lot to put the apprentices at ease. And one of the nice things that we got from our workshops last year, both in the summer and in October, was hearing from training providers and colleges that our independent assessors were making apprentices feel at ease, not making it feel like an interrogation, but making it feel more like a discussion about what they do and how they go about things, even to the point where apprentices were coming out of the interviews wondering if they've actually had the official interview from us. So we will continue to do that. If there are any IEPAs on the session, my thanks to you for making those sorts of things happen, because that is what is making the difference for all of our apprentices, making them feel that they can talk about what they do and how they do things. And just to be clear, we are looking about what they did, what they do, not what the team does that they belong to. We don't mind them talking about the fact they're in a team and the way they work within a team, but we want to hear what their role is and what they do within that team. Sorry, I scrolled on one too many. So as the interview is being carried out, this is for you or for them to make sure. Unfortunately, we can do the interviews remotely, so that is helping at this time. But you just need to make sure that there is good internet connectivity. We had a bit of an issue on our session this morning. There has to be a camera, because they need to be showing us who they are, and they need to show us their identification, that the microphone and headsets and all those things are working, that they're in a suitable location. Now, I know with the situation we're in now, some of those might actually have to end up being at home. But they need to be not at the dining room table with their mum and dad, or brothers and sisters running around or whatever. They certainly shouldn't be in a Costa's. They're all closed at the moment. But please, just make sure that they can get to somewhere where they can be on their own. Yes, please make sure they have appropriate photo identification. It does say that it's passport or driving license. We do understand some apprentices may not have a passport or driving license. So, if your training provider or college provides photo IDs to your students, then make sure they have those. They can have copies of the Summative Portfolio, the Synoptic Project report, and the employer reference with them in the interview. In addition to that, if they've done something brilliant since they've been through Gateway, then they should be making notes about those things, because they can use those in the interview as well to give examples of what they do and how they actually operate in the workplace. So some do's and don'ts, try and speak clearly. Don't be searching Google for answers. We will be able to tell. That's why the camera's on. And talk about, as I say, what they've done. Don't talk about we's, talk about I's. And give examples. It isn't, so you put in this network, how did that go? Well, it went well. Well, why did it go well? Talk us through it. Talk us about the story. The thing we were saying this morning about the Summative Portfolio is it is about their story. This interview is about them, not about us. So they need to really take ownership of that. And they can take time to think about their answers, not too long, obviously, but, don't just run into the answer. If they don't understand the question or they're not quite sure what's being asked, then either ask for it to be repeated or ask for it to be rephrased, or actually say, do you mean, and ask the question themselves. Take ownership of the interview is our clear message here, and stay calm. As I say, the thing we've heard is that our independent assessors are making that happen. They are keeping people comfortable around what is being happened, even to the point where allegedly one apprentice came out of their interview dancing. They were so happy with what went on. And tell the interview further information. If they ask you a question, don't just leave it at giving the answer. Take it further to how that has now been used to further what they're doing in what they've done since Get to Gateway. And put the answers in context of the workplace. We don't want answers around, oh, well, when I'm at home, I can do this, that. We're not interested. This is about their job. This is about them. And at the end of the day, we want to know one simple thing. You, as the training provider, have said that they can do the job. You've signed the Gateway Declaration. The employer has signed that Gateway Declaration to say they can do the job, and so have they. So prove it. Tell us about what you do and how good you really are. That's what we're looking for. So are the knowledge qualifications, so we're into frequently asked questions, are the knowledge qualification certificates enough for the outcomes in the Summative Portfolio? The answer to that is simply no. They're a test at a given time. And they are a multiple choice test. They really don't show how the learning that has been achieved has actually then been used to do the job that they do every day. So what we're looking for in terms of the Summative Portfolio, in terms of meeting the knowledge outcomes, is this is my job, this is what I do, and when I do these things, I know how to make the decision about doing this because I was shown this, that, or the other. That's what we're looking for in terms of knowledge. We're not looking for them to spout the curriculum from either our knowledge qualifications or CCNA or Microsoft products or whatever. We're just looking at that link between what you've taught them, what they've learned at work, and what they put into practice. I've already said there are no set questions, though we do, as I say, have that one consistent question of what do you do, or tell me what you do at work. Should you include everything the apprentice has done in the portfolio submitted? No, the clue is in what it is called. It is a summative portfolio. We're looking for their best. Some EPA areas are still calling them showcases. That's what it's about. We don't need to see they were rubbish at doing the job when they first started, but they're brilliant now. What we want to see is they're brilliant now. Okay, that's the key bit. They can, if they want to, take the whole of what they've done, the portfolio they've built up, into the interview. But I urge you not to just take that in. They need the summative portfolio, that showcase portfolio, separate from the bulk of what they've done, because We have only seen that showcase summative portfolio. Can you just do vendor professional qualifications for the on-program element? Well, the only digital standard where that can be done is the infrastructure technician. All of the other digital apprenticeships, ESFA will only pay for one vendor qualification, and we will only accept one vendor qualification as exemptions. Now, if you want to deliver more vendor products, or the employer wants more vendor products in network engineer, software developer, digital marketer, etc., then yes, you can deliver those, but you will have to pay for the registration and certification exams, etc., from a different pot to your funding for the apprenticeship. You can, however, pay for the learning materials from your funding if you can show that that learning is relevant to the outcomes of the apprenticeship. In terms of the projects, you don't have to have people going through in cohorts. You don't have to have a cohort of apprentices you've taken on doing all the same project. City and Guilds has deliberately written multiple projects for all of our standards to allow you, the apprentice, to choose the one that is closest to what they do in their actual job. And that's been done deliberately because we know that all of the standards are quite broad to a certain extent, and therefore people in their job roles will tend to focus on certain things. So we've tried to accommodate that through the projects. In terms of marking the Synoptic projects and what the pass mark is, there isn't one. They aren't marked like that. It's an holistic assessment. So our independent assessors, our IEPers, will be looking at the evidence from the portfolio. They'll look at the evidence from the Synoptic project and the way your apprentices have worked through that. And they'll look at the employer reference. And from that, they will draw the questions for the interview. And at the end of the interview, and only then at the end of the interview, will they be making the final grading judgment. Now, clearly, if somebody does something brilliant in their project and writes up a brilliant report of evidence, the expectation there will be that they ought to be at least getting a pass or above. But we do not mark the individual elements and aggregate the result. The other piece on here, can the Synoptic project and interview be done at the employer premises? Well, in normal times, the answer to that would be yes, most certainly. Of course they can. It is really a question of having somebody there who acts as the supervisor or responsible person. So in terms of the Synoptic project, they obviously would need the resources available as described in the particular project they're going to do. They need a private and suitable space to carry the project out, access to the internet if allowed for the project, and they need to be supervised by a responsible person. And you would need to make sure that the person in the employer who's going to do that understands what that means and that they understand the EPA guidelines from us around that. You will be accountable for what they do. They are responsible for what they do in the room. In terms of the interview, again, it's privacy, no interruptions, good internet connection, camera, microphone, headset, and as I say, they can bring the evidence that they've submitted into there to use to help support their answers from the questions they are going to get. We've not normally gone through how do apprentices fail, because we hope they don't. And that's why we're trying to do these events, and we're trying to feed back to you the information we get from our lead independent assessors on lessons learned and best practice. But it can be done, and it does happen. If they haven't, for all of the outcomes in the sum, there is a potential they could fail. Now, we are not talking about meeting what is being said in the occupational brief. So if the occupational brief says they've got to do 3 forms of communication, we don't necessarily expect to see that in the summative portfolio, because at the end of the day, that occupational brief is meant to cover the whole of the EPA, which includes the Synoptic Project, the employer reference, and the interview. So across those 4 pieces, they will undoubtedly cover 3 pieces of communication. So it's about the outcomes, not the occupational brief. One of the other failures that we had at the beginning of this year was around an employer reference, which then led on to the way the apprentice actually wrote up their summative portfolio evidence. One small organisation was really keen to show how the employer felt about their team. He felt everybody contributed to what they did and the way the business operated. So the employer reference was couched in, we do this, this is how we work, this is how we communicate with people, these are the skills we have in our organisation. There was nothing particular to the apprentice. And the problem with that is the apprentice then wrote up their summative portfolio in we as a team do, we as a team operate, we as a team plan. So again, we didn't get a clear idea of who they were and their role in what was going on. So please make sure that your employers are thinking about the apprentice and not themselves. Providing evidence, including witness testimonies that have had grading decisions by you on there. You writing on the material saying, I think this is good and ought to get you a distinction. Please make sure all evidence comes to us with no comments. I urge you to keep any comments on separate bits of paper because we know that you're going to want to make sure that your apprentices are doing the right thing and including the right things within their portfolios, but please don't write comments on what you send to us. And then the last one here is consistent versus consistently. So when we talk about consistent, when they're writing up reports, especially for the summative portfolio, then pick a report format and stick to it. We're not going to say it has to be in a particular format of any kind because different organizations have different ways of writing up reports. But once you've got a format, stay with it because then the independent assessor gets into a rhythm of reading their way through those reports. On the other hand, if an outcome talks about consistently show something, then that means they have to be able to show that they can do something more than once. And we would therefore expect to see at least 2, if not 3 pieces of evidence against that particular outcome. So what I've tried to do is to give you a bit of a flavour around the sorts of things and hints and tips around the interview, hints and tips around the project and some of the frequently asked questions. One of the big things is preparation for the interview. I can't stress it enough. In talking with one of our colleges who had 12 people about to go to EPA, they offered all 12 the opportunity to do a mock interview. 11 of those apprentices took that opportunity, and when they got to the interview, they did quite well, and all of them passed. The one person that didn't actually did fail overall because they got themselves into a state about what they were going to be asked, and they got all the sorts of questions in their head about what they needed to do their homework on that were a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated than what actually happened. So please make sure that you give your apprentices some interview prep. And again, within our EPA preparation area, there's the EPA prep tool. And in there are a number of things around getting prepared for interview, timings of projects and things of that nature as well. So please use the materials that we provide. They will help. So, questions?
There's only been one question so far, and that was what does NSAR stand for, which is National Skills Academy for Rail. You can have a look at their website, which is nsar.co.uk, and does explain not just about their EQA service, but what else they do. across the wider piece. So yeah, there's nothing. There's a couple more questions. Just some thanks. Thank you very much for excellent support, very useful. That's from Dr. Nathan Vila. None from a good presentation. Thank you, Harold. Do you have any examples of a project observation form? That's from Janice.
Yeah, so if you go on to our normal website, and if you go to 9648, which is the first 4 digital apprenticeship standards that we offered, if you open any one of those, when you get onto the 9648 page, you'll see a Documents tab. If you click on that, scroll down the page, you'll see 4 blocks, one for infrastructure technician, one for network engineer, one for software developer, and one for digital marketer. And if you click on any one of those, within there you'll see on program and EPA blocks, and within the EPA blocks, or it might be under other center documents, you will actually find word processed versions of all of the forms that we provide, that include the declaration forms and the observation form for the responsible person.
And that's it for now. There's no other questions there. So I mean,
Okay.
Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for submitting questions. It is very helpful and a big part of the overall presentation. Back to you, Cam.
Thank you. So for those of you who weren't with us this morning, City and Guilds as a whole is trying to do as much as it possible can. It can at this time to support you, support the delivery, not just of apprenticeships, but all our qualifications. And we've actually created a page, COVID-19 page on our website, where you can go and you can find out the details around the various things that we can offer you to help you with delivery and assessment. That is being constantly updated as new things happen, as decisions are being made. So, for example, the on-program exams, we're being asked, can they be remote proctored? That is something that is with our COVID-19 assessment support team at the moment, because they're discussing the implications of not having those supervised or invigilated with Ofqual, and how we can go about it. Now, we know, David and I, that obviously the people working in the digital world are quite used to being able to do those sorts of things, because it's the sort of thing that happens with the vendor qualifications. So we need a consistent message coming out from head office, because obviously we also deal with things like functional skills and a wide range of other qualifications that have online exams as well. So we need to manage those. But that page is available. Please use it. Please go and have a look at what is on there and what can be done. In order to support distance learning, there are some free learning materials to support the management of COVID-19 on that webpage. And we're also opening up access to certain things on Smart Screen, if they are available on Smart Screen. So for those doing Unified Comms, for example, you ought to be able to get access to the training manual for your apprentices. There's also tools on there now to help apprentices especially work with remote assessors, so working with you in order to get them prepared for the endpoint assessment. And yes, we do have some online learning materials, and I have to say they are a paid-for service. But for infrastructure technician, network engineer, and for digital marketer, we do have a product under our Get to Gateway banner. It is more than just Get to Gateway. The knowledge and information under there and the tasks that are set for the apprentices within that learning material are to help support all of their learning for the whole of the apprenticeship, and help them get the right understanding and knowledge to help them going forward to the EPA. If you want to know more about Get to Gateway, please get in contact either with our digital sales team or with your business account manager, and they can arrange a demonstration of that for you. We also have EPA process support. I mean, we've always had this. If you need help with bookings, or you need help with understanding the processes, etc., we have the EPA customer success team. Please contact our customer service people and ask if one of them can get in touch with you and talk you through some of the things if you are new or unfamiliar with the journey working with us. And again, you can talk to your business account manager or technical advisor, and we can potentially arrange for that to happen as well. We also have EPA partnership managers. Their role is a slightly higher level than the support team, but they're also there to help manage the processes, help you work with employers, and make sure that if your bookings seem to get lost, or things aren't coming through, or certificates haven't happened, they can chase all those sorts of things going on. At the moment, we have 4 people. We're due to have a 5th person join us to look after the Southwest, so we can split the South into 2 sections, and that will happen hopefully in the middle of April, so that we can continue to give you the best support we possibly can around EPA and ensure the success of your apprentices. In terms of upcoming webinars, we do want to keep in touch with you. We do want to make sure that we're there. I mean, if you need to get in touch and ask questions, many people have my email address, or they have their account manager's email address. But you can email David and myself. If we can't answer the question via email, then we can always arrange to have a call with you and discuss things on a one-to-one basis around your college or your training provider and your apprentices. But in addition to that, I've set up a webinar that will happen on the 28th of April, which will be a staying in touch any questions session. Then we'll be launching a new product on the 30th of April. And then again on the 12th of April, we'll have another any questions session. I will be sending out invites to those in the next couple of days. So again, I urge you to make sure that you have gone onto our website, gone to the bottom of the screen, clicked on where it says email update, gone into the preference center, and tell us you want to know about apprenticeships and you want to know about IT, okay? Because that's the way that we are sending out all of these alerts and information right now.
Hi, Ken.
Yep.
You're okay for some more?
Take more questions, certainly. So as David said, this is being recorded. We will put them up, the recordings up on our website, and we will potentially look to send these out to you all as well. But there's David and mine email address. They're quite simple. Also, you can email apprenticeships@cityandguilds.com, or you can go to the COVID-19 website or the Apprenticeships web hub. And there at the bottom, there's the bit about City and Guilds email updates. David, questions, sir?
Okay, this is from Christopher. So are there any exemplars of summative portfolios that can be referred to?
So as I said, we don't actually give examples out, because it would be very hard to give you any one particular portfolio, because who do I give you? Do I give you something from somebody, say at BT, where everybody from day one is taught to write official reports in BT speak? Or do I give you the 5-man local IT support dealership that writes very informal? So what we've done, and if you weren't on the Summative Portfolio session this morning, I would urge you to join us on the 7th of April, because what we have done is we've tried to provide a format, if you like, for helping your apprentice tell us the story of what they do and how they go about it. And again, in the EPA preparation area, within the different areas for the different standards, you will find information around, as I say, each of the elements of the endpoint assessment. So there are documents there that talk through what to do about the summative portfolios.
Sorry, thanks, Ken. I'm muting myself there. Can you clarify the reset procedures if there is a failure at any EPA component? That's from David.
Okay, so because it's holistic, strictly speaking, what they're supposed to do is do it all over again. However, in reality, we need to be pragmatic about this. So what we would normally advise, and you're going to have to find a way of doing this remotely, but what we would normally advise is that you need to spend something like 3 or 4 days with the apprentice, the first half day or the first day really going through whatever the feedback is that has come back from the independent assessor on why your apprentice has failed. They should go back through their summative portfolio. They should look at the work, look at it in light of the feedback, and they should enhance it. They should make sure that it is clear and show that they've actually done some remedial work on it. We are not expecting them to produce a whole brand new portfolio. In terms of the project, again, strictly speaking, they should do the whole thing again. Some of our handbooks talk about them doing a totally different project. We've actually rejected them doing a totally different one. That would go against what I was saying earlier, that the projects have been set up so that they can do one that closely matches what they do normally in their job role. If somebody does only mainly hardware upgrades, why would you then suddenly give them a project that's all about software upgrades? That would be totally unfair and testing them for testing's sake. So again, it's going through the feedback and then going back through the project and making sure they've covered the points. And one big thing, one of my lead independent assessors has come back with is, make sure that they are drawing conclusions around what they've done at the end of doing those projects. Those sorts of things will help to show their way of thinking. And then we don't need a new employer reference. You just need to then book the interview, and the turnaround time for that is a lot faster than the first time round, where we normally quote 60 to 90 days. But of course, you will have to resubmit the updated evidence. So it is about updating the evidence, not producing a whole new swathe of stuff. And as long as you don't help them redo the stuff in the project, of course, you can provide them with advice and guidance about what they may want to do to improve their summative portfolio.
Okay, thanks, Ken. This is the last one I can see. Actually, there might be some more. This is a specific one for digital marketer. The email marketing synoptic project doesn't give much detail in terms of a brief. For example, no background on the business involved. Just a bit of a tricky one to get their heads around. So I suppose any advice or guidance on that?
So my question is that based on the synoptic project brief, or has the person actually opened the project, the live projects itself? Because in the live projects, it usually gives quite a detailed scenario of who the company is and what it is that they do. So as long as you don't give the full-blown live project to the apprentice, then you as the training provider can look at that. So that you are clear as to what is going to be asked of them. I've not heard anybody else sort of make that comment about the email marketing one. So I would have to ask whether that was from reading the synoptic project brief or the full live project itself.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Another thank you for Ken this morning. Very informative from Andrea. 12th of April is a Sunday. That's from Mark.
Sorry, it's 12th of May. That's my fault. I did change it on the slide deck this morning. I forgot to change it this afternoon. So it's the 28th of April, 30th of April, and 12th of May.
Okay, thanks.
That shows people were paying attention.
Yes, you've put that in there deliberately. And another thanks from Chris Jackman. So, thank you once again, everybody, for your questions and for participating and listening today.
Yes, and my thanks as well. And we hope you can join us on the 28th on basis. We're more than happy to give you a call and set up a Skype, Teams, or even a phone call if that's required. We wish you all to keep safe. And we look forward to talking to you again in the not too distant future. Thank you.